Hey, you know, the promise of fair pay is fundamental to American law. The laws are set up to protect workers from being ripped off by their employers. These laws are strictly enforced, resulting in absolute liability for the employer. Despite the effectiveness of these laws, so many workers are still being paid less than minimum wage. So many workers are still being denied overtime for their long hours of work. Whether the employer is negligent or deliberately ripping you off, the employer is liable and will be held to task if you challenge them in court. Let's consider what the law actually is. There's both federal law and state law. Maryland is extremely aggressive as compared to other states. The minimum wage in Maryland is $15 an hour. It's even higher in Montgomery County, and it will get higher every year. The idea is to protect people and to prevent people from being forced into poverty by employers who are more interested in getting rich on the sweat of somebody else's back. It's not okay. Not only do you have to be paid minimum wage for every hour that you work, if you work more than 40 hours in any given week, you need to be paid 1.5 times the hourly rate. So if your employer is paying you the minimum and you're in Montgomery County and you're earning $17 an hour, when you work that 41st hour, you need to get $17 plus 50% of $17. In other words, you need to be paid $22 an hour. If you're paid less than minimum wage in Maryland, you are entitled, or you may be entitled, to triple damages. That means if you should have gotten paid $200, the compensation for you bringing a lawsuit against your employer is going to be $600. And depending on how egregious the behavior of your employer has been, that employer may also be held accountable for your attorney's fees. There is no money that you need to lay out of your pocket when you're going to hold your employer accountable. If you are being underpaid, if you are not being paid overtime, you and your coworkers give us a call at Paray and Associates. We will defend you. It is important that people are not forced into poverty by cheating employers. Give us a call. Our number is 301-515-1190. Give us a call. In Maryland, employers are required to pay their employees at least minimum wage. If the employee pays you less than minimum wage, they are liable for damages under both federal and state law. These laws are set up to protect the individual from being ripped off by their employer. An employee, a worker, is vulnerable and not as powerful as the employer, and very often accepts treatment that is illegal. Being paid less than minimum wage is illegal, and you have the right to defend yourself. You have the right to demand that you be paid minimum wage. Whether your employer is doing this inadvertently, negligently, paying you less than minimum wage, or intentionally, they are still liable. There isn't any burden of proof there. All you need to prove is that you've been paid less than minimum wage. At Paray and Associates, we fight for employees who are paid less than minimum wage. It is important for our society and our community that people are kept out of poverty, that employers are not allowed to take advantage of their employees. We will help. Let's take a look at what is actually involved. Minimum wage in Maryland is $15 an hour. In Montgomery County, it's even higher. It's if you're working for a large employer, it's $17.15 an hour. If it's a medium-sized employer, in other words, less than 50 employees, then it's $15.50 an hour. But you need to be paid at least minimum wage for every hour that you work. There's also rules, statutes, laws that force overtime pay. So if you work more than 40 hours in any given week, for each hour over 40, you're entitled to 1.5 times your usual hourly rate. So if your hourly rate is $20 an hour and you work that 41st hour, you are then entitled to $30 an hour. If the employer fails to pay you $30 an hour, they are in violation of the law. So you need to be paid at least minimum wage, and you need to be paid time and a half for every hour over minimum wage. So for example, if you're working in a restaurant and you work 50 hours and you're paid $20 an hour, and you worked 50 hours, but you're only given $1,000, in other words, $20 an hour for each of your hours over 40, you're entitled to an additional $100 plus 3 times those damages. So for each day that you worked and you were underpaid, you're entitled to $300 of compensation. It's important to hold your employer accountable. It's important to take advantage of these laws and make sure that they're enforced. It's important not only to you and your financial health, but it's important to the community around you. There shouldn't be rich and then poor. As much as possible, fair wages, fair compensation ensure a healthier, more vibrant community. At Paray and Associates, we help defend these laws. We defend minimum wage laws. We defend overtime laws. If your employer is taking advantage of you, give us a call at 301-515-1190. We will help.